Hey you guys, what's going on? It's your big dreamer and doer, G Dinero, coming to you today, this Friday, to bring you Financial Freedom Friday, or F3 as I'm calling it. Today we're going to talk about getting started. But first,
Mufasa, you know we finally here, right?
Well,
It's Friday then, it's Saturday, Sunday, what? It's Friday then, it's Saturday, Sunday, what? It's Friday again, it's Saturday, Sunday. Let's go, let's go, what,
remember, none of this is tax, financial, legal, investment advice. It's your buddy G Dinero helping you to increase your financial literacy at the end of the day. And if you'd like to see more content like this, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to this channel. That way you'll see more content like mine, not just my content, but others like mine. And I'll ask you to leave a comment in the comment section below. What'd you like best? What could I do better in this video? So first of all, you've got to start somewhere, right? Too many people are fearful or timid of getting started in investing. They're unsure of what's around the next corner. They don't want to make a mistake, right? They're fearful of making a mistake. And the crazy thing is, a lot of people, they don't even just try to tiptoe into the water. They dive right in. And that's another big mistake. So you kind of have to meet somewhere in the middle, right? You need to get in there. You need to learn. You need to increase your knowledge, increase your skills. That's what you're doing, jumping on these videos every day. And so make sure you start. That's the most important thing, is to start. And I'm going to show you the cost of not doing so here in a second. So this is the price of waiting. And I just used some random numbers here, okay? I didn't go hog wild with this. I'm saying you're starting with $10,000 right now, and you're saving $100 a month. That's why I put it right there at $1,200. Now, that's not going to make you insanely wealthy for the rest of your life, but it just puts it to you in context. If the numbers don't look right to you, you could always say you start with 10 times what this number is, right? You can change the 10,000 to 100,000. You can change the $1,200 a year to $12,000 a year. You could change that you're going to do this for 30 years instead of 40, right? I just put in, because the standard that everybody uses is the growth of $10,000 over the course of 40 years and putting away an additional $100 a month over that time frame. So you start with 10 grand, you put away an extra $100 a month, you do that for 40 years, and your return on that is $406,076. But if you delay and wait 10 years to get started, just waiting 10 years, meaning you don't start today, but you start 10 years from today and do the exact same thing, put away $10,000, you do it for, you put away $10,000, you start with that, you put away an extra $100 a month, but you only do it for 30 years, you're only going to have half as much. You're going to have $197,410. That is a massive difference between those two. And that's assuming a rate of return of 7%. Why did I put 7% in there? A lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, the stock market returns between 6 and 8% per year. Or you'll go to a financial advisor and they'll tell you, well, the best I could really, safely return you is around 6% per year. So I kind of went even a little bit above that. I'll show you in a second what happens if you get a higher return. But just remember, in this particular case, if you started with just $10,000 and you put away just $100 a month and you did that for 40 years, the power of compounding kicks in, and even at a 7% return, that will be worth $406,000. Instead, if you wait 10 years and do the whole same process, it's only going to be worth $197,000, less than half. It's a massive cost of waiting that you can see here. This is all due to the power of compounding. Albert Einstein calls that the eighth wonder of the world, right? He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. Think about that one for a second. There are people that are just barely making their minimum credit card payment, paying 22, 23, 25% annual interest on their credit card. They will never pay off that credit card debt. On the other hand, you have people who have been investing for years, like Warren Buffett, who's just now stepping down from Berkshire Hathaway, and he understands it and earns through the power of compounding. He has, because he's been doing it for 65 years, and it has compounded exponentially in just the last couple of decades. The first few are slow, but then it goes up exponentially at the end. So we'll show you here what I mean and how the return that you get, the percentage that you earn on your investment, really matters. Some of you will recognize this from an earlier video of mine that I did talking about the eighth wonder of the world, but I'm going to go ahead and spend a little bit more time on this today. And what we have here is $10,000. And what would it be worth at the end of 10 years if you got a varying degree of a varying percentage of returns on your investment? Now, 5%, when I made this slide initially, 5% was what you were able to get by buying treasuries or by putting your money in a savings account. A lot of them were paying 4.5% to 5% interest. Now they're down below like 3 to 4% interest, somewhere in that range. So you're looking at about a 4%, what they would call safe rate of return, right? With no risk involved in that. You're holding a treasure. I would say there's risk because of the devaluation of money. But what I mean by no risk is you're going way, way, way low on the risk profile. You're not way out there on the risk profile. So a 5% return on $10,000, if you compound it over time, is worth $16,289 at the end of 10 years. Doesn't sound like much, right? You know, it's $10,500 after the first year, 11 after the second, but it does grow, and it starts to grow a bit more exponentially towards the end. Again, highlighting the importance of getting started early. Gold, which has historically returned around 8% over the last 10-year period. Now, this is again outdated. I think that's up to like 10 to 12% right now because of the run that gold had recently. So you could almost say that gold's results have been a lot more like the S&P ones that you see next to it. But gold at an 8% return. So again, if your broker tells you they're going to give you a 6 to 8% return, then on the high side, they're going to take $10,800 and turn it into $21,589. That's not including the fees that they're going to take out every single year to manage the money for you. So, and we're going to do a future video on that in a little bit. S&P 500, if the S&P 500 has averaged around 11% return for the last 10 years, then you would take $11,000 and turn it into $28,000. Notice we're starting to get up there to where it's really making sense to get a higher rate of return. I put in there 20, 25, 30, 40, 50%. People are like 50% compound annual growth rate, meaning year after year, you're earning 50% and then 50% on that the following year and 50% on that the following year. That's impossible. No, it's not. Bitcoin over the last 10 years has returned an 84% return. Again, at the time I made this slide, this was a little bit ago. Right now, it'd probably be higher. But an 84% return, compound annual growth rate over the last 10 years, meaning if that's the average. Some years have had a negative return and others have been in the hundreds of percent return. But if you average it out over 10 years, it averages 84% per year. At the end of 1 year, you've already beaten what took you 10 years at a 5% return. Look at the 5% return. It's 16,289. Look over at BTC. It's 84% going to $18,400 in the very first year. 18,000 is $2,000 more than when you got after 10 years of only a 5% return. So risk matters. The return that you get, it matters. Look at Bitcoin compounded over 10 years. A $10,000 investment with no additional principal added turns into $4.448 million in 10 years at an 84% return. Okay, let's say Bitcoin doesn't continue to return these huge returns like it has for the last 10 years. Fair enough, right? The asset's more mature. The returns are probably coming down year after year. So what if it only did half that? You would take and turn $10,000 into $289,000. What if it only did a quarter of that? The 20%, you're still going from $10,000 to $62,000 over the next 10 years. And most experts are saying it's going to be somewhere between 25 to 30% for the next 10 to 20 years. So take a look at those columns. $10,000 at 25% becomes $93,000. $10,000 at 30% becomes $138,000. I don't know about you, but I'd much rather have call it $93,000 to $138,000 after 10 years than only $16,000. That's life-changing money, and it shows you it doesn't take much to get started. So I want you to think about it in terms of buckets. This is how it was taught to me. And you have like things like your checking account. I'm just moving left to right. Your checking account, your savings account, stocks, Bitcoin, and perhaps other cryptocurrencies, options, CDs, real estate, right? Each of these are buckets of investable assets, things that you can invest in that give you a return on your investment. The first one, checking, most checking accounts don't offer you any rate of return. At best, they might offer you 0.1% interest on your money. At best. That's it. Savings is the next one over. Savings might offer you somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4% if you're in a high yield savings account. Many of the big banks, they're only paying you 0.1, 0.2% interest on your money. They're paying you nothing, right? So get your money out of a savings account at the big banks and go to one of the online banks, something like Capital One. I'm not shilling them. I just use them personally. Capital One's, it's been as high as 4.5%. It's been as low as like 3.5% over the last couple of years. It's right there around the same as T-bills. So you could include in savings accounts things like treasuries, right? Treasuries are offering you somewhere in the neighborhood of 4% right now, plus or minus, depending on how long out you're buying those for. Moving all the way to the right-hand side, I'm going to skip the 3 in the middle for a moment, moving to the purple bucket all the way to the right. Real estate. Real estate has become most of the people in the world's number one investment is real estate, right? That's how the average person invests. They buy a house, they buy it on a mortgage, they turn around and make mortgage payments over years, which is basically like a forced investment into a home. The home price goes up over time and appreciates, typically appreciating just slightly faster than the monetary debasement, which we'll talk about in a moment. And so you're just barely staying ahead of inflation technically. And that way at the end, when you've made payments for 30 years, if it's a 30-year conventional mortgage, you have your house, let's say, has gone up, doubled in value. And so the money that you put in, you can now get back out in the form of equity. But you can't do anything with that money if it's locked up in your house. Keep that in mind. So that's like one of those illiquid investments. You've got the money there. It has appreciated in value, but the only way you can capitalize on it and get that value or realize that return is to sell the house and get the money out of it. Or take a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, or some kind of loan against the value. Take out another mortgage against the house. There are things that can be done. I'm not going to highlight those right now. I'm just talking about it as another form of investing. You have CDs. CDs is kind of like a juiced up savings account, right? You're going to give the money to the bank for a certain amount of time. Let's say it's 6 months or a year and a half or 2. And they're going to guarantee you a rate of return. Typically, those right now are somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5% to 4%. The best ones are around 3.5% to 4%. They were as high as 5.25% when the interest rates had gotten hiked all the way up, and they've been as low as 1% when there's 0% interest rates out there, right? So that's CDs. And then the 3 in the middle are stocks, options, and Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. And those are going to give you the highest rate of return. They're the most volatile of the bunch. but they pay you for that volatility because they swing in value so much. Those are the ones that are going to give you the highest rate of return. Things like stocks, options takes and leverages that on top of it. And then Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies, especially some of the smaller altcoins, those are the absolute highest in volatility of everything that we're talking about here. So when I said think of it in terms of buckets, think of it in terms of the average person fills up the first bucket, the one that's all the way to the left. It's kind of black in the back left-hand corner. They fill up their checking account. And then from there, they spend and spend and spend on things that they have to spend on, a house or rent, somewhere to live, right? Then they turn around and they spend on a car so they can get to and from work. And a lot of them, they spend on a car that's more extravagant than they really even need for those purposes. They might spend on, you need clothing, you need food. There's just certain things you need. Then they're spending on discretionary items like, well, a cell phone nowadays is a necessity. I don't even look at it as a discretionary item. But maybe they spend on the latest and greatest cell phone. They turn around and pay for a Sirius XM satellite subscription. They make sure they have every streaming service known to man on the television, right? They turn around and they make sure they have the latest kicks, the latest shoes, the fanciest Apple Watch that's out there. And I'm just listing off some things that you see out there in the world, right? And when it's all said and done, they're putting all this onto a credit card and there's no money left at the end of the month. There's more month left than money. More month left than money at the end of the month. And that's not a good thing. So what happens is they go into debt higher and higher and higher. What I would suppose is why not turn this and flip it upside down on its head and make sure that you're sprinkling a little bit into at least 2 or 3 of the other buckets instead of only your checking account. In fact, pay yourself first. That's something that I've learned over the years. That means before you do anything else, for all that hard work, take a portion of your paycheck and pay yourself with it. That might mean going and buying the thing that you've been saving up for now that you have enough money for it. Or it may mean simply you're going to invest in your future first. You're going to put that money into one of those investable buckets first before you start paying bills and everything else at the end of the day. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. I don't have the money to do that. And I think you'd be surprised that you do. You would find that money. The problem is you're going into the discretionary spending first, not the necessities. I'm not talking about your housing and your car and your food. I'm talking about the discretionary things. You're doing those before you're paying yourself for your future. So pay yourself first. What about this? Start early like we just showed. Instead of waiting to turn around and start investing, start today. You should have started yesterday. That was the best time to start if you haven't already started. The next best time is today, and the next best time will be tomorrow. There will be no better time than the present to go ahead and start because we've already showed the power of compounding and how starting early can help you become a better, not only a better investor because you have more time to learn the skills necessary, but time is on your side. Here's one that a lot of people don't even think of. I do this now. Any income that I get comes straight into my savings account first. From there, I withdraw the money I need over to my checking account to go pay the bills. So if you don't have a budget, go create a budget for yourself. And it's simple. What are the things that you spend money on month after month after month? My housing is X amount of dollars per month. My car payment is this. I spend this amount on fuel and car insurance. I spend this amount on food. I need this amount for a clothing allowance because I have to wear a suit and tie to work every day, right? Whatever those discretionary things are, the utilities at your house, the lights, the electric, right? TV is a discretionary. It's not a necessity. I'm not putting it in that category. Sorry. But pull the money out of your savings account and put it into the checking to pay those things. Leave the rest in the savings account. Have it direct deposited in there. Most people do it the other way around. They have it direct deposited into their checking account. And if there's any money left over, they turn around and put it in their savings account. That's probably the number one little hack Or pro tip I can give you, start with a direct deposit into your savings account instead of your checking account. And last but not least, make it automatic so you don't have to think about it every single day. Why sit there and have to think about these things? Just make it automatic. It just automatically gets dropped into your savings account. You're saving every other week if you get paid every other week, or once a month if you get paid once a month, or once a week if you get paid weekly. It's going straight into your savings account and you're saving. And then from there, you're taking the money out that you need to spend on your daily living expenses. So let's talk for a second about good and bad debt. So everybody, there's so many people out there. If you talk to the Susie Ormans of the world or the Dave Ramseys of the world, they tell you debt is bad. They tell you don't go into debt. And I would beg to differ. There's good debt and bad debt. I'm going to agree with them once we get to the bad category. But here's some examples of good debt. A mortgage. I mean, you need a place to live, right? And you can typically put down a low amount of money up front, borrowing a large percentage of money. It's backed by the house that you're living in. So it's backed by collateral that's typically going up, right? I know there's periods where real estate pulls back, but over time, real estate has just gone up and to the right with periods of pullbacks like 2008 during the great financial crisis, right? But you need a place to live. You've got a low down payment, and you can get long terms. Typically, I know some of you are international and you guys hear us talk about our 30-year mortgages and you think we're crazy over here, because in a lot of countries, it's a 5-year or a 10-year mortgage and the rate adjusts at all times. But here we can get fixed rate mortgages for 30 years at a time, getting very good rates on these things when you think about it at the end of the day. Even a 6 or 7% rate isn't bad when you consider the fact that money is debasing or devaluing at around 10 to 14% per year, depending on who you listen to. Safety and Amos would tell you, the guy that wrote the Bitcoin Standard, he would tell you that it's going down at 14% per year and has been for decades. Others would say, nah, it's more like 7, 8, 9, 10%. I'm of the belief that it's somewhere between 10 and 14%, meaning $100 this year spends like, or is only worth 90 bucks. What did I say? $100? Yeah, it's only worth 90 bucks next year. $100 this year is worth 90 bucks next year. That's what it'll spend like. And the following year, it'll be worth 10% less than that. So that's $81, and so on and so forth. It doesn't take long. Within a few years, your money's got half the value that what it started with. So if that's happening faster at a higher percentage than what your loan is at, that's not a bad deal, right? What if you had a 5% loan and money's going down at 10%? In the future, as you're paying back that loan, you're paying it back with dollars that don't go as far anyway, but you fixed that rate up front. Also, 0% interest credit cards. Now, before you just slay me on this one, responsible use of 0% interest credit cards. So if you've already got a credit card, and let's say you've got it and it's maxed out, but you've been diligent about making the payments on it, your credit is good, why not look for one of these 0% interest credit cards? First, you got to fix the problem, and that's not putting everything on the credit card. That's fixed by save first, then pay yourself for your bills that you need to pay, and then tap into what you want to discretionarily spend. But if you're spending more than you make, this next thing I'm going to say is probably not a good idea, because you'll just run the next credit card up and the next one and the next one and the next one. But otherwise, if you have one that has a high rate, apply for one of these 0% interest credit cards. You can pay a 5% fee to transfer the balance over one time. Those fees have been as low as 3%. They've been as high as 5% recently. But a 5% one-time fee. So let's say you had $10,000 in credit card debt that you're paying 23% interest on. Roll that over, $10,000 over onto one of these 0% interest credit cards, and it would cost you $500. That's 5% of $10,000. So now you're paying back $10,500, but a lot of them will give you 12 months, 15 months, some of the best one even 18 to 21 months to pay it back with no interest. So you take the let's say $10,500, you break that down into, okay, if I have to pay it off in 12 months, what is that? It's about $800 a month or somewhere thereabouts. So you just make sure you make the $800 a month payment, and you've reduced that debt burden that you put yourself in. So those are examples of good debt. What are some examples of bad debt? Credit cards. We just talked about it. Some of them are as much as 25%. Guys, that is slavery. It's indentured slavery. It should be illegal. I can't even imagine how the credit card companies get away with it, but they do. And the thing is, don't fall victim to it. I just gave you a way to get yourself out of it, provided you've been able to make that minimum payment and you show that your credit is otherwise good. If you have poor credit, I don't think you're going to be able to find one of these 0% interest credit card deals out there, right? You're going to have to resort to something else. Perhaps borrow the money from somebody and turn around and pay them back at 5 or 10% interest. And you're still saving yourself money, because at least then your credit cards aren't just raking you over the coals. Because remember the slide I showed you before, what 25% increase is, or 25% year after year after year looked like on the positive side of things. It works the same way on the negative side of things, guys. Payday loans, some of these things are as much as 15 or 20%. Again, you notice that these percentages are higher than what I said the monetary debasement was. If monetary debasement is 10% and you're paying 20%, you're paying too much. And then also highly leveraged investments. In my opinion, this is bad debt, especially the title of this is getting started. If you're a sophisticated investor and you know how to use leverage, that's a different story. But this is geared towards the beginner, towards the person just getting started. They think the best and fastest way to make money is to turn around and leverage. And so they'll turn around and put up $1,000 of their own money and borrow $9,000 of somebody else's money, levered up at 10x leverage. And it only takes a small move either to the downside or upside, depending on whether you're playing long or short. It only takes a small move to the downside or upside to just completely destroy you. And your $1,000 is absolutely, totally toast. It's gone. So there's no reason to highly lever your investments, especially when you're getting started. Maybe a 2x leverage, but I wouldn't even go that far. I would just start without leverage when you're getting started. The key is this: are you getting a return greater than the cost of servicing the loan? If the answer is yes, that's good debt. If the answer is no, it's bad debt. So for example, you borrow at 3 to 5% for a mortgage. I understand the mortgage rates are currently 6 to 7%. I pay attention to them all the time. But I got a loan at 3%. So I know that they have been available over the last couple of years. And if you're watching the things that are going on in the world, as the interest rates start to get lowered, the mortgage rates should start to come down. And I believe we drop back below 5% again, or at least down to 5%. So let's say you're borrowing at 5% for a mortgage and your home appreciates at 10% per year. That's good debt. You needed a place to live anyway. Sure, you're paying interest on the mortgage, but on the flip side, if the home is appreciating 10% per year, then at the end of the mortgage, if the house is worth 2 or 3 times what it was when you started, bingo, you've built equity in there. You turn around and it's a fixed forced investment. On the other hand, you pay 5% interest to borrow money that you invest to earn a 10 to 15% return. That's another example of good debt. You're borrowing at 5% and you're getting a 10 to 15% return on your investment, i.e. the stock market, which is typically around 8 to 12%. Or we've talked about how things like Bitcoin can be as high as 84%. And if it only gave you a 20% return, that'd still be massive. We talked about gold has averaged 8%. It's a little higher right now, more like 9 or 10 or even 12% for the last 10 years, right? Those are examples of using some debt. You're borrowing in something that's depreciating. Cash is depreciating. Fiat currency is depreciating. So you're borrowing in something that's depreciating in order to earn in something that's going up or appreciating. Guys, I hope that you found value in this today. I teach a series of courses where I teach people how to read charts on TradingView and do technical analysis, how to get started in investing in stocks and options and cryptocurrencies. I also have a whole course on understanding options, the ins and outs from the terminology to the Greeks to the different strategies that are available out there. And I also do one-on-one coaching for people that want to take it to the next step. You can find all those things there at gdinerocoaching.com. Again, make sure you've liked this video, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss anything else like it. Drop a comment below. Did you like this format? A little different than the usual ones that I do? And what would you like to see more of in the future? Again, I'm G Dinero. I'm helping you increase your financial literacy to help set you and your family on that path to financial freedom. So here's to Financial Freedom Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Take care.